Hobbies. Everyone loves them. There are hundreds of things you can be doing in your free time, like baking, gardening, painting, cloud watching, yoga, crocheting, powerlifting, birding, combat juggling, and my personal favorite, extreme ironing. But among Gen Zers, when you meet someone new and face the inevitable,
"So, what do you do for fun?"
chances are that you're going to hear the following. Scrolling on my phone, sleeping, maybe watching some TV. Aww. And that answer feels rather empty, right? I mean, none of those are really hobbies. Are they? Well, the harsh reality is this. Hobbies, real, authentic ones, are dying. And yeah, it's the internet's fault. Hey, I'm Hey, and welcome to my channel. I make videos about culture, media, random questions I have, and other things that, pique my interest. So yeah, thank you for being here. As a disgruntled member of Gen Z who thinks a lot, I can't help but observe that hobbies are always on a lot of people's minds. In the modern day, a lot of people are just tired, man. I mean, yeah, I would be too with 12 years of school every day, Monday to Friday, early in the morning until well after the sun comes down, because you're also doing extracurriculars and homework and studying. And then when you're done, a grueling job, or hey, you might be crazy and you might even want more school, All that to just earn money. That'll truly never be enough. Yeah, I'd be tired too. But people want to escape. And in the few hours that they have to themselves at the end of the day, they want to pursue things that make them feel happy. And that's where hobbies come in. Hobbies, they're a beautiful thing. So dear viewer, make yourself comfortable. Put on some hand-knit socks and grab some fresh sourdough bread. Join me on this deep dive and learn about the pastimes of the society that we live in, why we need them, and why without them, individualism as we know it will perish. You thought I was going to get into the deep philosophical stuff first? No. We need to crawl before we run, right guys? So let's establish a baseline of what we're really working with here. Merriam-Webster defines a hobby as... I'm so sorry, guys. I know, I'm so sorry. My accent's so bad. As unoriginal as a dictionary definition is, we just need to understand what a hobby is. A pursuit outside of one's regular occupation engaged in, especially for relaxation. That's nice. As an interest or activity, hobbies come in many forms, including learning a new skill, physical activities, collecting, social hobbies, anything really. Look at everything that you could do with pickleball. Hobbies are fundamentally the manifestations of our greatest passions. As that, they reflect a lot about our morals and values. This, in turn, allows people to build and strengthen their identity around things that they care about. An example of this is an avid hiker and campers who really care about environmentalism. When a person has a lot of hobbies, they're able to develop complex layers to their identity, and as a result, they're going to feel a lot more fulfilled in their life. And those are just the behavioral, the scientific benefits of hobbies aren't to be overlooked either. Heidi Godman of the Harvard Medical School writes that hobbies involve creativity, sensory engagement, self-expression, relaxation, and cognitive stimulation, which are linked to good mental health and well-being. Plus, taking part in hobby groups keeps you socially connected, which helps reduce loneliness and isolation. Alright, that's a pretty comprehensive foundation on hobbies, if I do say so myself. But how did we as a society get here? To truly understand the motives and trends of today, we must understand the past. Girlies have been taking the time to look cute from 4000 BC to today, be for real. But to begin, we'll have to go back. Way back. Oh, would you look at that? I've been transported to the Garden of Eden. No, not that one. I wonder if... Eve, what are you doing? Excuse me, who are you? That doesn't matter. What matters is that you can't eat that apple. Why not? It looks amazing. This lovely serpent just offered it to me. That's the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. You eating it will ruin everything.
So you're saying no one eats fruit from where you're from?
Oh, no, I mean, we eat plenty of fruit. But this fruit? No. Bad news.
But I'm a foodie. I forage, I pair figs with honey, I do little charcuterie platters. I invented it. It's like a whole thing.
A foodie? You invented foodies?
You're welcome.
Don't you have pastimes that don't involve eternal doom? Like, I don't know, knitting?
What's knitting?
Ugh, never mind. You don't even wear clothes. Girl, you can't eat that.
Well, you can't tell me what to do. I need to share this to Faithbook.
Faithbook?
Eve, you're literally the first human. Who are you sharing this with?
Adam?
He's busy naming animals right now, though.
Did you know he called that thing over there a platypus? Focus. The apple. Luck.
Food is my passion. It's a part of who I am. You don't get to come in here and tell me who or what I can't be.
You think you can control me? Tell me what interests of mine are right and what's wrong? This apple, it's mine to taste. And there's nothing you can do about it.
Ugh, God forbid a woman have hobbies.
Yeesh. That was weird. I think we went a bit too far back. Anyways, let's get back to... From my garish anecdote, I was trying to insinuate that for as long as humans have had free time, there have also been hobbies. Let's go back 12,000 years ago, where it's argued that hunter-gatherers didn't spend their entire day foraging for food. The American anthropologist Marshall Solins argues that the era of hunter-gatherers is considered the original affluent society. This means that considering the hours spent working versus leisure, all the people's wants are satisfied. Therefore, because humans were content with less and worked fewer hours than their agrarian successors, they had much more time to dedicate to leisurely activities. But it's important to note that hunter-gatherers face significant challenges in their daily life as well, including, but not limited to, high infant mortality rates, diseases without any modern medicine, and occasionally food scarcity, which is very far from the idyllic utopia we might imagine for them. But in their free time, it's speculated the hunter-gatherers could be seen singing and composing songs, playing musical instruments, sewing intricate bead designs, telling stories, playing games, visiting others, or just lying around and resting. But, at the end of the day, because this period of human history has no written records, only anthropological evidence can be used to identify their pastimes. Then, lightning strike. The agricultural revolution happened. No! Why? Once the agricultural revolution occurred, less people needed to work, because one farmer could produce enough food for a growing population. More availabilities meant that specialty work could be pursued. The best example of this is in ancient Mesopotamia, where the oldest civilization developed. In addition to artisanal skills like pottery, jewelry making, and textile weaving, the first inklings of industry were created through scribes, mathematics, and astrology. This diversification of new industries laid the foundation for hobbies as we know them today. So for all the modern fanfic writers, nerds, and space girls, y'all could thank the ancient Sumerians for their contribution. And then the rest of human history passed, hobbies came in and out of style. Once society started flourishing, hobbies were many times a privilege only reserved for the rich and social elites. After all, a lot of the times they were the only ones with the wealth and leisure time who could afford to engage in activities beyond their basic survival. Moving along, let's collect 200 and pass go as we zoom by the Industrial Revolution. We'll stop in the 1950s, and the emergence of a dedicated space for hobbies in a typical suburban home. During this time, more people moved out of the big city and into suburbia with their 2.5 kids and American-built vehicles. This movement of people is also known as urban flight. For tired white men after a 9-to-5, in which they could afford a house, a car, and 3 children all on one salary, basements, garages, and sheds began to be turned into workshops for their hobbies. As much as I hate the term, this was indeed the soft launch of the man cave. Gendered roles for boys and girls, which have always existed, also became more deeply ingrained in the American psyche during this time. This pushed boys and men towards more outdoor pursuits, with hands-on hobbies like fixing cars and experimenting with science kits or sports. Girls and women, on the other hand, were guided towards more domestic tasks. creative indoor hobbies like sewing, cooking, and crafting. Moving forward, as technology became more advanced, more hobbies developed. The cultural movements of the 1960s and 70s saw the increase in artistic hobbies like photography, music, and art, as well as vinyl record collecting. The 1980s and 90s saw the rise of personal computers, which brought film, gaming, and coding into the public sphere, as well as the crazy 80s fitness craze, where everyone wore crazy colors and drank weird things to stay skinny. Yeesh. So as we could see, hobbies have evolved significantly over time. But as we transition into the digital age, where our lives are increasingly defined by screens, the question arises, what does it mean to have an authentic hobby today? The rest of this video will primarily focus on Gen Z, or the generation born between 1997 and 2012. 2012! I too am a member of this generation. One feature of older Gen Zs are that they're the newest generation in the workforce. So in a time of serious economic uncertainty, it's no surprise that many in this generation feel burnt out and disconnected from the world around them. But there are a lot of things that are trying to bring Gen Z down. You don't have to look any farther than what the media is saying nowadays. Intense job competition, unlivable wages, and the growing pressure to succeed in an unstable economy all really weigh on a person. And this just comes down to Gen Z's frustrating reality. They're denied the social mobility that 50 years ago would have enabled them to achieve milestones like owning a house, a car, and starting a family, and maybe even taking a vacation, all for the same amount of work. So where does this insurmountable societal pressure leave Gen Z? Well, after they leave their 9, more like 8 to 5 job and drive an hour home, the easiest thing they can do is just, flop on the couch and pull out your phone. And then it's just post after post after, ad after, post after, AI-generated content. As the algorithms funded by billions of dollars from tech companies do exactly what they're designed to do, Gen Z becomes victims of the digital age. But this brings the question, does Gen Z actually have the free time to pursue hobbies? At first glance, it might seem so, given the conveniences of modern life. For comparison, millennials, or those born from 1981 to 1999, averaged around 4.4 hours of daily leisure time in 2017, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. This is 1.2 hours less than older generations, who average 5.6 hours. Comprehensive data for Gen Z is harder to find, being that they're only really entering the workforce now. But building off millennial trends, it's safe to say that Gen Z has some free time. The real question is how much of it's shaped and consumed by the influence of the internet. There's a reason that my brief history from earlier ended in the 1980s and 90s. The late 90s and early 2000s saw the rise of the internet and social media sites by extension. Sites like LiveJournal from 1999, Friendster from 2002, and MySpace from 2003 all introduced normal people to online messaging, blogs, and profile curation. And many factors have led to the boom of social media sites since the early 2000s. One is smartphones. They became more accessible, and more people were able to make accounts. Businesses then started to see social media as a potential marketing avenue. And most importantly, algorithms became integrated into the everyday app experience. Algorithms changed the name of the game, as logging into Instagram to see what your 15 friends are doing now became about psychological appeal. Personalized content delivery like this made apps much more globally connected, as content became hyper-focused on virality and engagement. And with that, you have the perfect storm to ensure endless scrolling times on app by users and record times spent online. But just because someone doesn't have, 23 hours and 59 minutes of screen time, it doesn't mean that social media isn't present in your life. In the US, these platforms are used in daily life for entertainment, education, and news, including but not limited to. But as successive generations like Gen Alpha and Gen Beta start to develop their identities, I'm frightened of how they'll survive with increasingly addictive media in a digital world. This could be an entirely different video, but it's just so interesting to see, like a tiny little baby with a massive screen in front of it. The relationship between technology with kids today is really different than the relationship that kids had in the late 2000s. I think that the most addictive thing that I had when I was that age was probably Club Penguin and Puffles maybe. Ugh, I loved Puffles. Shout out to my grandma for making me a Puffle birthday cake. But all that aside, now that we understand the digital time usage of younger generations, let's see how this focus shifts to identity. That's a heavy word. what is it that makes someone? What defines who someone is and what they stand for? Well, a lot of things. A person's identity is influenced by their culture, their ethnicity, upbringing, family and friends, socioeconomic status, religion, political views, even their fashion style. All these experiences and countless more are all individual blocks that come together to build, well, you. Having a strong sense of identity not only allows someone to understand themselves, but also the world around them. Arguably, it's your most prized possession. But in the modern day, we're obsessed with identity. With the pressures of technology and daily life, so many people fixate on the idea of the self. As we previously mentioned, social media tends to make people feel isolated, which results in their focus being shifted from a community to themselves. Having an authentic identity provides someone with a sense of belonging in a big, scary, interconnected world. In a perfect world where everyone has completed all of their introspection and has absolutely no outside influence, then yeah, they're able to completely be their authentic self. But this isn't Gen Z's fault. We live in such a fast-paced, hyper-connected world. There's an infinite amount of things to choose and do in your free time. And the constant turnover of hobbies makes it so hard for someone to integrate it into their sense of self. A hobby just becomes a fleeting phase rather than a meaningful part of their identity. And I do think that Gen Z, with all of its options and opportunities for self-expression, really suffers from this rapid switching and results in an identity crisis. One of the best ways I've seen this explained is from an excerpt of Sylvia Plath's The Bell Jar. From the perspective of the main character, Esther, Plath writes, "I saw my life branching out before me like the green fig tree in the story. From the tip of every branch, like a fat purple fig, a wonderful future beckoned and winked. One fig was a husband and a happy home and children, and another fig was a famous poet, and another fig was a brilliant professor, and another fig was E.G., the amazing editor, and another fig was Europe and Africa and South America, and another fig was Constantine and Socrates and Attila and a pack of other lovers with queer names and offbeat professions. And another fig was an Olympic lady crew champion. And beyond and above these figs were many more figs that I couldn't quite make out. I saw myself sitting in the crotch of this fig tree, starving to death just because I couldn't make up my mind which of the figs I would choose. I wanted each and every one of them, but choosing one meant losing all the rest. And as I sat there, unable to decide, the figs began to wrinkle and go black. And one by one, they plopped to the ground at my feet." Oh, that's so good. She gets it. Just feeling stuck. By connecting Esther's indecision about professions to our conversation about hobbies, in some way Sylvia Plath is telling us that some people do have identities that are always changing, and they use their hobbies to express this. Being able to confidently pick up one fig knowing that there are hundreds of others at your disposal is, in theory, a liberating experience, as it gives you the confidence in knowing that if one thing doesn't work, there are other options. This adaptable new worldview can help one discover deeper passions that they might not have explored otherwise. This further solidifies their confidence in who they want to be, their identity. And that, in my opinion, is a win. So now we know two things. Gen Z is among one of the most chronically online generations, and they yearn for ways to define their identity. But before we understand what's killing them, we need to understand what those hobbies are. And that brings us to the last thing we'll discuss before going into the nitty-gritty are what Gen Z's hobbies even are. I have, non-scientifically, grouped hobbies into 4 categories: competent, the creative, the cerebral, and the consumer. Each of these hobby groups end up affecting someone's well-being in different ways, meaning 2 things. 1 is a direct impact on happiness, and 2 is a direct impact on life satisfaction. These are 2 different things, as happiness is a smaller, more momentary emotion that boosts serotonin and dopamine, while life satisfaction is a broader assessment of one's life and contentness. I also want to acknowledge that this section is incredibly surface level, and I kind of struggled to find a place to put it in the video, but I did want to talk about this a lot. So without further ado, first up are competent hobbies. It's a group that, if you're able to do these successfully, I feel like it makes your life easier. Physical hobbies definitely fit into this category, with some of the most popular in younger folks being running, going to the gym, yoga, Pilates, hiking, cycling, dance, and what burnout workaholics do in their free time, rock climbing. Another competent hobby is self-care because it usually benefits you by enhancing your appearance, whatnot, and keeping you healthy. So I'm going to say things like skincare, hair care, and like men's shaving would kind of fall into this. Because let's be so for real, as long as holidays exist, men's shaving gift boxes will also always exist. However, this does have a tiny bit of an overlap with the consumer hobby, so interesting to think about. And the last big portion of competent hobbies that I would kind of categorize are cooking and baking, because being able to prepare like good, healthy food and actually enjoy doing it is a massively beneficial skill. I mean, every human being needs to eat 3 meals a day, every day, until they die. So you might as well enjoy it while you're doing it. This is also to say, though, I'm so envious of all the really good chefs out there, because sometimes the food that I make is just... Ugh. I have to get better at cooking. But anyways, these hobbies improve the way you perceive yourself and make you feel stronger and more confident. Physical activity is often considered to be the easiest way to increase well-being. So yeah, in terms of the well-being ranking, competent hobbies are going to be difficult to beat. Next are creative hobbies. This name is rather self-explanatory, which is essentially just encompassing all the hobbies that stem from, like original ideas, and ultimately results in a form of self-expression. I like to think that creative hobbies normally result in an original product, whether it's physical or not. So this would include traditional artistic hobbies like drawing and painting, sculpting, and writing. But it can also include things like crafting, music, and theater and dance performances. Crafting is a particularly popular hobby today among Gen Z, being considered a cozy hobby, with lots of people crocheting, knitting, embroidering. In terms of well-being, creative hobbies are hard to gauge. It's really easy for someone to feel dissatisfied with themselves creatively. This ends up resulting in the opposite of the intended effect of a hobby, to relax. But it's generally considered that there is an artist inside of everyone. I mean, anyone can cook. Having a creative hobby can help turn dissatisfaction around while allowing for a creative outlet, overall boosting happiness and satisfaction. Moving on. Cerebral hobbies. I had to come up with a C word, bear with me. These are anything that benefit your brain and intelligence, meaning that there's mental stimulation involved and a pursuit of knowledge. I feel like these hobbies are often the rarest, mainly because they take sustained dedication and brain power to do. It's kind of the opposite thing that a brain-rotted Gen Z would want to do in their free time. But some of the hobbies that require this mental stimulation, reading and writing, learning a new language, learning a musical instrument, puzzles, maybe even chess, anything really like learning. In terms of well-being, the overall satisfaction of learning a completely new skill is simply unmatched. It's really satisfying to reflect on your progress and see how far you've come. If you're learning new things, you just end up using it in every single aspect of your life. It just helps develop your mind so much. And now, consumer hobbies. This group is made out of hobbies that primarily focus on acquiring things. So this includes media consumption, watching movies, TV shows, playing video games, and I would say collecting things. And this is easily one of the most polarizing categories in terms of, valuable hobbies to have. Mainly because the line of engagement and passive absorption is really thin. Also, I would say that hobbies like this have an inherently capitalist nature. This is primarily due to the fueled desire for products, right? Like, we've seen how people act with Pokemon. I've never been able to buy anything from Pokemon vending machines in my supermarket because they're always sold out. Anyways. It ends up perpetuating a cycle of consumption, right? Which ends up linking personal identity to consumer choices. So the two groups of consumer hobbies, in my opinion, are collecting and passive entertainment. Let's talk about the lesser of two evils first, which is collecting. There's an infinite amount of things you can collect. Coins, sneakers, dolls, teddy bears, sunny angels, water bottles. Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot of things you can collect. Collectors take very great pride in their collection. That goes without saying, right? There's sometimes a financial incentive to collect. Sometimes items increase in value, which would allow someone to sell something later on for a profit. This is different than like scalpers, though. That's a completely different ballgame. I personally consider shopping a collecting hobby as well. To many with disposable income, I think going to new stores or even like thrifting to acquire things like fashion, is a form of entertainment. But like in this case, instead of collecting like Hatsune Miku figures, they're just collecting clothes. I think that clothes shopping as a hobby also dabbles in creative and adult as well, because like obviously you have to like present yourself to look good. And you can also express yourself through your clothes. One more thing to note about this consumer category here. I'm kind of derailing a bit, but please, I'm sorry, bear with me. I think that there's an entirely different subsection of people who take TV shows or video games or musicians or anything and make it their entire personality. If anything, I would say that fandoms are actually the epitome of consumer hobbies. To be in a fandom, you have to pour over hundreds of hours of episodes, seasons, albums of content. Then, to prove your devotion, you can purchase merchandise, you could even collect it. And then, when you want to talk to others, you can just go onto social media sites and then have your algorithms completely be dictated by your fandom. Getting back on track, I'm going to take the stance that while media consumption isn't a hobby itself, engagement with it afterwards is perfectly valid. While the consuming part of it doesn't take much effort, meaningfully engaging the media afterwards elevates what was passive to a new, enriching, thought-provoking hobby. Alrighty, I've yapped, you've napped. We're how long into this video? I've set up the building blocks of hobbies. It's time to knock it down. I present to you from the depths of the YouTube algorithm, the death of authenticity in hobbies in the digital age. Let's think. Why doesn't Gen Z have authentic hobbies? Okay, people are busy. Okay, people are tired too, right? What are they tired from? Work, right? Working to make money. Or if you're a student, studying in school to be able to work to make money. Okay, what else are people tired from? Okay, well, we've been yapping about social media a lot. Okay, social media, something that promotes what's popular, right? What's cool, kicks things it doesn't like to the side, makes you obsessed, right? With yourself, with your image, how others see you. If you had more money, right? You could buy nicer things, right? To show others, right? You could make yourself feel better with that. And if you play your cards right, those nice things that you have can help you make even more money. Oh, our livelihoods in the modern age are dependent on productivity and capitalism. How is productivity manifested today? One way is in people that have really intense morning routines. They're able to get a lot done in their day. If they wake up at 4 a.m, right, they can do their 12-step skincare routine and they can also work out. Another way to see productivity is in really cracked out Google calendars. Those that have color-coded time blocks that perfectly map what's happening every minute in your day. But it's not all smiles. In the modern day, productivity exists to make sure that every second of every day is being filled. Filled by what? Well, in labor, in one way or another. Even at the cost of small, spontaneous moments that allow humans to enjoy life. And now, for the other portion of our Part 1 killer. Our disgustingly late-stage capitalist society needs no introduction. But for those of you who are blissfully unaware, I'll let this AI overview in dark mode tell you that. In the sphere of hobbies, in terms of capitalism, our society has forced everyone to become their own little capitalist in their own little world, trying to wring every minute for every cent it's worth. This introduces side hustle and gig culture into hobbies, which can also be called jobbies. This means that on top of a hobby needing to be considered productive, it also needs to be considered profitable, and money needs to be earned at the bottom line. Almost like a value per minute kind of deal. Clearly the pastimes that net more money are more desirable by society, right? But they don't say more money, more problems for nothing. The second that money is involved, pleasure slowly begins to disappear. And responsibilities like bills, inventory, taxes, scheduling pile up. And oh god, now there's a whole Notion template. But now you're invested. Maybe you've told some folks that you're monetizing your hobby. Maybe you've made an Instagram account. And unfortunately, to turn a profit, you might have to change your once authentic niche hobby to something that'll sell better. This cycle just repeats itself from person to person and hobby to hobby. Something that can start off as really special and personal can easily be corrupted and become corporate, soulless, and disjointed. But on a happier note, there are many success stories of people who have turned hobbies into small businesses and have stayed authentic to themselves. They happen to love something that others love too, and were good enough at it to make a profit. And to those people, nothing but respect. Zooming out a bit, wealth inequality is also something that needs to be mentioned. It's a lot easier for wealthy people to feel unburdened by the need to add financial value to their time. On the other hand, Gen Z often feels the threat to constantly monetize. This ends up bringing economic terms like opportunity cost, value per minute, and return on investment into something that you were originally just supposed to do for fun. But don't worry, I won't get into all those terms now. Despite capitalism's demonization, hobbies always have intrinsic worth, even if there's no financial benefit. The pressure to maximize every minute and make the most productive choice all the time ends up leaving no room for hobbies as they were meant to be: personal, fulfilling, and free from external validation. Because the truth is simple. Time enjoyed is never time wasted. Your hobbies don't need to be productive. They don't need to be profitable. And they certainly don't need anyone's approval, except your own. With capitalism being able to sell materials to people as well, hobbies are still able to be in the game. But with authenticity, there are other factors at play. All right, let's finish this. The second culprit of the death of authenticity is the commodification of identity, and subsequently, hobbies. This is due to the online culture that's established by digital performances and curated aesthetics. You want an example of an aesthetic? Oh yeah, okay, just give me a minute. Okay, how about we look to the hundreds of online communities that have been created by TikTok? We've got your most commonly known aesthetics: cottagecore, dark and light academia, e-girls, clean girls, Y2K, the list goes on. But there's also a lot of smaller aesthetics out there. Fairycore, downtown girls, coquette, kidcore, Barbiecore, lots of cores. I feel weird saying those words aloud. Aesthetics aren't by any means a bad thing. They allow people to explore new communities online and develop their fashion style too. Ultimately, they offer an opportunity for self-expression. It's not a crime for people to want to play dress to impress with their closet so they can feel comfortable, right? Believe me, if my lifestyle and wallet could afford it, I would curate the hell out of my identity too. But there are some downsides to aesthetics. These curated identities are less about personal intrinsic desires, and more about how individuals want to align with trends and fit in aspects of existing. Let's use the analogy of draw. As a person moves from one community to another, it becomes
dramaturgical.
Yes, that dramaturgical perspective. Coined by Irving Goffman in his 1959 book, The Presentation of Self in Everyday Life. Life is compared to a stage, with front and backstage. An individual is therefore an actor, performing different roles in different scenario locations. So poetic. Front stage is obviously front and center, where the entire audience can see them. As a result of this increased attention, an individual will present a curated version of themselves to be seen. Backstage is free from these prying eyes of society, tucked safely behind the curtains. This allows people to act more authentically in their everyday behaviors. Another part of this theory is the use of props and costumes, which are tools that actors use to give a more believable performance. Things like fashion, hairstyles, makeup, and accessories are all markers of an actor's role. I really like this analogy, and I think it does a good job of putting the absurdity of online personas into perspective. It's no surprise, though, that social media impacts us negatively by blurring the lines between front and backstage. It's always social media. This rift is increased by things like close friend stories, and even the app Be Real, which attempts to mimic a backstage environment. By using props and costumes dictated by chosen trendy aesthetics, Gen Z has mastered building their online personas and ensuring that every moment, both front and backstage, appears intentional. For example, does someone who creates YouTube videos in their free time really enjoy the hundreds of hours of creating an avatar, researching, writing a script, recording a video, editing that video, creating a thumbnail and posting? Really love content creation? Or does she just want to come across as the introspective, intellectual, artsy type to people on the internet? Taking myself out of this equation, to understand this better, let's compare the subcultures of the past to aesthetics now, and their respective hobbies. One that I love talking about is the punk era, from the mid-1970s to the 80s, in New York. This subculture originated as a reaction to commercialized rock music. Punks wanted to be authentic, rebellious, and free from mainstream control. They primarily did this through really big DIY attitude. They made their own music, their own clothing, their own artwork to distance themselves from what they didn't agree with. Their hobbies then weren't just a way to pass the time. they were deeply tied to cultural and social identities. Through their economic and societal views, punks were able to make an entirely new art genre that associates patches, pins, spikes, and rips with their culture. Their creativity ended up bringing more people into their community, which further established their genre as one for history. Let's fast forward to today. It's clear that beyond purchasing items from an Amazon wish list or snagging a few secondhand pieces, what connects these two strangers is the stuff they bought, not the morals or deeper meaning behind the clothing that they wear. The reliance of buying things to be able to cultivate your identity just adds on to the capitalistic world that we live in, which ultimately kills personal identity. If the only criteria of being part of an aesthetic is to look a certain way, an aesthetic cannot grow and evolve with changing times and ideologies. Instead, they just exist and fade out of the trend cycle into oblivion when the next shiny thing appears. What's even crazier to note is that there is a way for modern aesthetics to have their own small-scale cultures. Obviously, it's nothing to the scale of the punk movement, but what I'm thinking about right now is Tumblr. Primarily, I'm thinking about ArtHo and 2014 Tumblr girls. These groups are predominantly made out of young girls and reigned supreme in the 2010s. On Tumblr, there were ways to explore your aesthetic beyond just posting pictures, though that was a large part of it. These communities use their visual identities as a way to express deeper personal beliefs and foster a sense of belonging in their community, while using the internet as a tool. Tumblr and its associated aesthetics are by no means free of allegations pertaining to racism, body issues, and cyberbullying, which ultimately does complicate their inclusivity. All I'm saying by mentioning Tumblr is that there is a way for people to engage in their aesthetics meaningfully. And on the topic of internet aesthetics, it's important to note that not every social media user is a chronic consumer. The issue lies behind the corporations that push aesthetics onto people because they know it'll make them buttloads of money. If aesthetic hashtags weren't getting billions of clicks, do you really think that TikTok and Instagram wouldn't be pushing them ahead in their algorithm? I do need to mention, though, this does not apply to small businesses and creators that meaningfully engage in their aesthetics. But something else that sucks about these aesthetics are just the rigid blinds that they draw about themselves. To be a true member of an aesthetic, everything in an outfit needs to jive. Also, very few pieces can be swapped from one core to another. It's nearly impossible to do an aesthetic 180 and change your entire wardrobe just to fit another aesthetic, especially if you're on a budget. Sure, pieces can be collected secondhand, but if you have a certain trendy aesthetic in mind, by the time that you acquire everything for it, it might not be on trend anymore. And to those who don't give a damn about how they're perceived online, kudos to you. But a large portion of Gen Zers are, for lack of a better word, influenced by these communities and their consumer cultures. All of this just to result in a reflection in a mirror. Sometimes this reflection isn't who you are on the inside. And as a result, your authentic identity and any hobbies you would have been pursuing with it are shattered. My friends, we are nearing the end of the video of my yapathon. So, how to reclaim what we've lost? Well, this is always a difficult part of any conversation, right? One way to begin this process is by learning how to motivate yourself to reach your fullest potential. An article I really like surrounding this topic is Wired's article titled Gen Z and the Art of Incentivized Self-Actualization. The article focused on a research team at Harvard that interviewed 80 Gen Z college students. In these students, the researchers noticed an overwhelming desire to double down on their efforts to live authentically. This means doing work they're passionate about, building meaningful bonds with peers, and making public the private selves to those who surround them. Many people have the intrinsic drive to change their lives, which is a relief, knowing that there are some people willing to quietly rebel from the monotonous life that capitalism sets out. So the next time that someone shares a unique hobby that they've tried, whether it's in person or online, try to support them. Encourage them to engage with the community behind it. One of the best things in the world is hearing someone you love sharing something they're passionate about. And who knows, by talking to people about what they like, you might gain a new interest or two. And to you, viewer, if there's a hobby that you've been wanting to try, and you have the means, just order the materials, consider it an investment in yourself. Life is too short and too uncertain to push things to tomorrow, and being able to pursue something that you love, even if it takes small compromises, will always be worth it. While it might be uncomfortable in the moment, the only way to grow is by learning new things and pursuing your hobbies. To reclaim what we've lost, we must learn to engage in hobbies for the sake of the experience itself, rather than how they make us appear to others. The most important hobbies in the digital age aren't the ones that make you feel closer to death. It's the ones that make you feel higher than life. I've said the word hobby so much in this video, it doesn't even sound like a real word anymore. After all that, what I have to say is this. My name is Hay, and I'm a proud member of Gen Z, with hobbies that make me happy. I go outside and hike, because I love the beauty of nature and its fragility. I love art because of the thousands of years of techniques behind it, and being able to see the beautiful things that people make. And hey, even if I'm not the best, if I continue doing it, I'll get better. I love playing the ukulele and taking photos of the world around me on my small little camera. I love collecting little things and creating journal entries to document my memories. And I like thinking about my ideas and dissecting them to make videos to share with others. So yeah, I do a lot in my free time, and I'm proud to say that it makes me feel happy, like a person, like myself, in this twisted, messed up world. So what about you? What do you do in your free time?
Ma'am, this is a Wendy's.
If you've made it to the end of this, I just want to say thank you. This is my first ever video. It's taking me months to make. I've learned so much about the editing process and what not to do next time. This is definitely like a starting point. I want to get so much better at this. And I have a lot of video ideas, which will probably end up being far shorter than this one. So stay tuned if you're interested. In my own disillusionment with the world around me, I'm on the fence on making social media accounts for this channel, primarily due to the technological overlords that I disagree with on a fundamental level. But if I do, I'll update the description and make a link tree and all that stuff. And if you have any fun, unique hobbies, feel free to leave a comment below because I'd love to hear about it and start a conversation. Anyways, I hope you like this video. If you would like to, you can subscribe to my channel. It would mean the world. And see you next time. Bye!